Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining in for the webinar this afternoon. My name's Louise. I'm one of the account managers over here at InfoTrack. I've just been asked to run through sort of the post-completion side of the system and how that's going to be saving you and your team quite a bit of time per transaction. The main way in which the InfoTrack system basically works is you never have to rekey data in again under your matter reference. At various points, obviously, throughout your purchase transactions, you have to rekey a lot of that data in when you're going to sort of separate providers for the pre-completion and post-completion side of things. That's probably taking up quite a bit of your time or your team's time. And obviously, with every new matter, that's kind of adding on to your casework as well. The way in which InfoTrack sort of generally works is when you go into any part of the system and you're entering in your matter reference into InfoTrack, the system actually starts to snowball and pick up data in relation to that matter, so that by the time you get on to do your post-completion, so your SDLTs and your AP1s, the system basically knows quite a bit about your transaction already, just because it's seen quite a lot of the information already pass through the system. I'll do a quick run through of the pre-completion side of things just to show how this information can essentially sort of snowball and start to pick up, so that by the time you go on to do your SDLTs and your AP1s, those forms can actually populate over 70%. So I'll start off just doing a quick run through of the pre-completions. So when you go on to do any land registry work through InfoTrack, we've incorporated obviously a comprehensive range of land registry services within the system. We tend to obviously see an official search with priority or a bankruptcy search come through the system, but just for the purposes of the demonstration, I'll just pop in my matter reference, so your client reference or file reference, however you term that unique code. We'll pop a title number in and add in the title plan then. We can verify the address and then hit order. And obviously a couple of things are happening now. The documents, once they get returned, will be emailed out to you, but the system is now starting to pick up more and more information on this particular matter. It now knows the title number because we've entered that into the system, and because of our integration with Land Registry, we can also pick up the address. So when we then go through and do the conveyancing searches, all I need to do is pop in my title, my matter reference, and that's appearing at the top of the list there. It knows the address. We can then just do a lookup and proceed with the searches as we would for a standard purchase transaction. I'm not going to proceed with the conveyancing searches because I'm just trying to show you sort of how the system can pre-populate the data, but it's a really similar process for the indemnity policies as well. You would obviously just go through and select whatever transaction policy we require. I'll just do a building regulations one. When I then go through to put in my matter reference again, we know the address of the property, but the system hasn't actually seen the names of the insured just yet. So I'll pop in my details. So for this transaction, I'm acting as the purchaser, and I can then confirm the address of the property and hit draft. And at this point again, the system is now picking up a little bit more information on this transaction. So at any point in the future, so now when we go on to do our post-completions, I will never have to rekey the purchaser's details again because InfoTrack already knows those details in relation to this matter. So the main thing to remember is just to keep your matter reference the same, obviously throughout your transaction, but this would be your unique client reference for this particular transaction, so that wouldn't be changing too frequently. Going on to do the SDLT forms, we are an integrated software supplier with HMRC. What that basically means is that they've helped us build these forms. We've embedded all of their restrictions and rules and guidelines that they have on their portal for submitting the SDLT forms into our form as well. And it probably looks quite a bit different to what you're used to or what your teams are used to going on the portal at the moment. But what we've basically done is just try to streamline the process and sort of save you quite a bit of time. So I'll show you obviously how the pre-population is going to save you quite a bit of time, as we've now got the property details in there. The vendor's details have actually pulled through from the title register that we ordered earlier on in the demo, but this would also pull through from an OS1 that's ordered as well through InfoTrack. And the purchaser, so my details have pulled through as well. So obviously a lot of the form has now pre-populated, so it's really just a question of going through and filling out the missing information. And when we go through and select sort of the relevant transaction descriptions, the form is actually going to amend itself from the SDLT 1 through 4, depending on the property type and the transaction descriptions that we're selecting on here. And we're just doing this to try and streamline the whole process. You're not going to have to sort through several different pages like you are on HMRC's system. It's all on one consolidated form, and you're not going to have to fill out or wade through any of the fields which aren't relevant to your transaction. So this will be particularly helpful if you have any new starters or anyone who's sort of never done conveyancing before. It's just a really easy sort of to navigate form, essentially. You don't have to sift through a lot of the stuff which isn't relevant for your transaction. So we'll get down to the tax calculation box now. So all of the details which I've entered into the form already, so the interest that's transferred, the property type, effective date, the transaction description, these are all obviously going to have an effect on the actual SDLT owed on the property. We can also declare if we're claiming relief at all, so that will take into account if it's a first-time buyer or anything like that. We'll then get down to the calculate button here. This is going to bring up the SDLT calculator button, and that's basically going to reiterate all of the information which we've previously entered into the form. So anything which is going to have an actual effect on the stamp duty that's owed on the property and the percentage against the purchase price. So I'm doing quite a bog standard SDLT for this particular transaction. It's just a conveyance, residential. We've got the effective date and the consideration in there. You've got the option to say if you're purchasing as an individual, and obviously any of these other factors which are going to have an effect on the actual stamp duty owed. One of the benefits as well of this calculator here, if I went through and said, oh, it's actually a second home, it's got the higher percentage owed on it, I can then click the buy to let, and that's now updated to the higher fee. If I then go to update, it will also update the actual form in the back end of the system here. So it's quite an intuitive form just to keep things easy and streamlined. But we'll keep it just as a standard residential for the time being. So there's no penalties included with this one. Vendor's details again has pulled through. We've got a couple there, and you can add in any additional vendors where necessary. With the vendor agent details, we actually integrate with the Law Society website to pull through agents details. So if I was just to put in a sample one here, we can pull their address and pre-populate the form, again, just to save you a little bit of time so you don't have to sift through your file and pick out your address or the address of the agent that you need to note. My purchaser's details have pulled through here, so again, just my details, and I can just click copy primary property address, and this is the purchasing property that we're working on, so that can just pre-populate again, so you don't have to rekey that data in over and over again. I'll just say no to these two, and we can pop in a passport number and the place of registration. And that's it. We've taken the turnaround time for filling out that form down to a couple of minutes, because we are, again, basically just filling out the missing information as opposed to starting from scratch each time. You've got a couple of options at the bottom now. You can add in an additional SDLT5 recipient. So if you've got a particular secretary fee earner set up, you can sort of CC in another person at the firm just to receive copies of the SDLT5 as they come back into the system. We can then confirm that your clients are essentially happy for you to proceed on their behalf. And we can either save and print, and this will basically give you a printable version of the form. So if you have it set up as your standard practice for your clients to sign off on the form, or anyone internally to review before a secretary submits it, this just basically gives you a printable version of the form. So very easy to read, no kind of legal jargon in there. If you need to send that across to your clients, you've also got the facility for them to sign off at the bottom. If you're happy with that and happy to proceed, we can go back on to Edit SDLT, scroll down to the bottom, confirm your clients are happy for you to proceed, and then submit. And as you can see, we've got a bit of a pop-up coming up just to confirm the effective date is correct, and we've taken a note of the actual stamp duty that's owed on the property. So once that's done, we can just click Submit to HMRC. And as soon as we submit, you'll have a couple of options here, or you'll have a couple of results sent across to you, and that will be a full draft of the policy, so what we just looked at, just to give you a confirmation of all of the data which was submitted onto our system and sent across to HMRC. You'll also get a submission receipt just to let you know, obviously, that your form has actually gone through to HMRC's portal. So if for whatever reason HMRC's system went down, you get that submission receipt just to know as soon as that has been submitted. And also, it does take a couple of minutes for the SDLT5 to be returned, but all documents, as with all of our services within InfoTrack, will be emailed across to you, and a copy of it across to you and obviously any other nominated recipients. And a copy of it will also then appear back within InfoTrack. So if anyone else within the team needed to review it, or anyone else needed to download it in a later date, if it got misplaced at all, that can all be brought back within the system. As again with all of our services on InfoTrack, if we go back on to home, this will show just a saved version of the form. I don't think I actually submitted it, and that's on waiting now. So as soon as that comes back, the SDLT file will pull back into the system and be emailed across to you as well. So that's now gone to complete. And the SDLT 5 is the same format as we're used to at the moment. We've got the unique transaction reference number on there and the certificate number and all of the relevant information. So now obviously a lot of the SDLT form pre-populated on there. With the AP1, there is so much information which is duplicated between the SDLT and the AP1 that the AP1 can actually pre-populate 90%. And it's a really similar process to what we just saw for the SDLT. I'll just pop in my matter reference. And all we really need to do now is go through and start to fill out the missing information as opposed to starting from scratch. So this is an actual electronic version of the AP1 form. All of the data which you enter into the system will automatically fire across to Land Registry's end. There's no manual intervention on InfoTrack's end at all. We won't sort of delay or review it at all. It will just automatically fire across to your caseworker at Land Registry. So for this particular matter reference, I'll just select the type of registration. So if it's just, again, a standard purchase, we can just go through as a dealing. The title number has pulled through on the system, and we can also just verify the address and do a registration lookup as well, just to make sure there's no pending applications. So panel 2 has pulled through the local authority and the postcode of property, because we've seen that already through the conveyancing searches and all of the other stuff we've done through the system for this matter. And if it's affecting the whole of the title or if it's part, obviously it will prompt you to upload a plan as well. Panel 4 is then when we declare the applications that we want to submit along with the AP1. Because we tend to deal with sort of standard purchase transactions, we've got sort of common combinations of the most frequently sort of uploaded forms at the top of the screen here. So our clients do tend to go through for a transfer and a charge, for example. The common forms are also listed individually underneath, and then all other forms that you could submit with an AP1 is listed just below on here. So I'll just go through and just do a simple transfer and a charge. The price paid for the property is brought across because we've seen that from the SDLT form. So I'll just click calculate, and that fee that's going through to Land Registry will calculate there for you. So it'll be £40 if it's a lower amount. The charge will also prompt you can put in additional MD references in there. And then panel 5 is just where you're going to upload copies of the document. So it's a mandatory upload to upload a copy of the transfer and the charge. If we click upload, this will just bring you across to your local documents to upload, and you can select the certification type. The SDLT files will automatically pull across as a supporting document. So these will be obviously any other documents that you're lodging with the AP1 that aren't an application. So again, the SDLT file was automatically pulled across, so you don't have to just go out and sort of re-upload it because the system has seen it already. You can then go through and add in any additional supporting documents where needed, sort of on a case-by-case basis. Panel 6, we've got my details in there again. I'm acting as the purchaser, and you can add in as many different individuals. Obviously, once you add in another one, a blank box will appear underneath for you to keep adding on a case-by-case basis. Panel 7 is then when you're declaring who's essentially submitting the application to Land Registry. So when you log into InfoTrack, this will pre-populate with your own details, but you can actually submit on behalf of another user within the firm. And that's quite relevant, obviously, if you're a secretary or support staff that's submitting on behalf of a solicitor, you can submit by selecting their user details from the drop-down here. And basically what that means is that when the forms come through to Land Registry electronically, they'll be able to see the actual solicitor who's working on the account, on the matter, in addition to the actual user who submitted it. What you can also do is add another user at the firm or anyone externally as a third-party notification. So this will essentially CC them in on any correspondence coming back from Land Registry, whether that's a requisition or a comment coming back from them, or the completion documents once they're returned. If you get stuck with any of the panels at all, obviously we've got our help desk consultants who will be on hand to help you with any sort of tricky ones which you've got given. And on the right hand side, we've also just got the question mark, which will just give you a breakdown of what Land Registry are requiring from these particular panels. Panel 13 is then probably the meatiest part of the AP1 form, which I'm sure a lot of you are kind of familiar with already. It's basically just where we want to declare who's who involved with the transaction and their represented conveyancers and their roles in relation to the applications. So for this particular application, we just submitted a TR1 and a charge in relation to this matter. The system also makes certain sort of basic assumptions with some of the forms that are being submitted. So if we know a TR1 is being submitted through the system and we know who the purchasers and who the sellers are, so I'm acting as the purchaser and we've got this couple here acting as the sellers for this property, the system makes certain basic assumptions again that the purchaser will be the transferee in relation to the TR1 and the borrower in relation to the charge, and the couple selling the property will be the transferors in relation to the TR1. The main thing to remember with panel 13 is that we need both roles associated with each application. So the TR1 now is essentially complete because the system knows or has assumed that the person purchasing the property is a transferee, and we've also got the transferor in there. So we'll flag up any of the information which is missing from this form, just to avoid obviously any kind of silly mistakes, missing information, just to avoid obviously requisitions and further delays. So where we've got the borrower listed in relation to the charge, we just need to add in a lender. So I would just go through and go to add new party, change that to company, I'll add in nationwide, select or add conveyancer, and then they would be the lender in relation to the charge. That error message has now gone. Obviously, you can see it's prompting to just fill out some missing information, but for the purpose of the demo, both applications now have the appropriate roles associated with them. And if any of them are missing, again, we'll flag that up with you so you can't submit the form with any missing information or with the form incorrectly filled out. If anything does need to be elaborated on at all, you've got the free text box down at the bottom just to add in any additional notes for your land registry caseworker. So once you've filled all that in, you've got a couple of options to either save and print or submit directly to land registry. So I'll just save a copy of the form here as we've got some missing information on there. So again, that's taken the fill out time down by quite a bit just because we are filling out the missing information as opposed to starting from scratch. But one of the things that InfoTrack do and we've provided to our clients now is it's not just that we're going to help you reduce the time for submitting your AP1s, we're also going to help you manage them once they've been submitted. So one of the benefits again of with the AP1s not allowing you to make sort of silly mistakes and submitting AP1s incorrectly, Land Registry will obviously record how many requisitions are being sent back on your AP1s, and this is something that lenders and panels will obviously have a look at. And by us sort of trying to help you reduce the number of requisitions coming back, it's just meaning that you won't have the number of requisitions go up against the firm's name. But if a requisition does come back on the system, we launched our AP1 dashboard last year, and this is a really useful visual tool to help you keep on top of all of your applications that are in progress at any given time. So we can see clearly the matter reference, the title number that it's in relation to, who's lodged it, the date lodged, and a cancellation date if that's applicable, and the application status. So as you can see, we're going to highlight and pick out the ones which are going to need sort of immediate attention. So ones which have been sort of necessarily cancelled or completed, and the ones which have a requisition outstanding. These are the ones which are going to need sort of immediate attention and review by, obviously your user within the firm or anyone else if your user's on holiday or anything like that. So it's a really easy way for anyone to come in, just be able to pick out the ones which need immediate attention and sort of resolve there and then. Once we click into our individual AP1, you've got a full audit trail on the left-hand side of the data which was entered into InfoTrack and subsequently sent across electronically to Land Registry. So we can just confirm, obviously, if you need to refer back to that for whatever reason. It's a really easy process for receiving and responding to the requisitions. It's basically like sort of having a WhatsApp or a text dialogue or anything with your caseworker. We can see when the AP1 was submitted and when the requisition was raised. So the requisition will come back in the same format that you're used to at the moment. It will appear through InfoTrack, so you won't need to go onto Land Registry's portal, and it will basically give you a bit of a notification because we'll send you out an email notification just to let you know a requisition has been raised on your matter. You can then go through, pick out however many points have been raised, and then to respond, it's such an easy process. You literally just type in your response at the bottom, attach a file or a couple if necessary, and then hit send. And as soon as you hit send, that automatically fires back to your Land Registry caseworker. You've actually also got the facility, if you submitted your AP1 and then realised you forgot to attach a specific document or you needed to make reference to something else, you always have the facility to send a sort of a correspondence over to Land Registry. So even if a requisition hasn't been raised, you can just type a note in or sort of anything which you want Land Registry to be aware of, hit send, and again, that will immediately fire across to your caseworker. As you can see at the top of the screen as well, we pull out the cancellation date that have been applied from the requisition. So once that cancellation date gets closer and closer, we're actually going to send you email reminders just to let you know that that requisition hasn't been responded to. So again, if anyone else in the team wanted to log on and look at the dashboard, if you know that a particular user's on holiday or off sick or anything like that, anyone within the firm would be able to respond to it. And it's very easy to sort of have an overview essentially of all of the AP1s. And then on the right-hand side, it will just give you a full breakdown of all of the documents submitted. So the requisitions and responses will be included along with the AP1 submitted and any documents submitted with the form. And this basically means that you can essentially tick off all of the documents at the end and also any responses, because obviously you'll need to keep that on file for auditing. You can then download, print or save or email a copy of these documents and send them across at the end of the transaction. So all of this is kind of geared around obviously kind of reducing the submission times for the SDLTs and the AP1s and also managing your AP1s. We want to sort of avoid any kind of further delays with requisitions being raised and any sort of requisitions also not being responded to. With the pre-population of both the SDLTs and the AP1 forms, we're actually finding that our clients are saving about an hour per transaction because it's reducing these admin tasks down to about a 5-minute job. Obviously, if you guys have any kind of further questions or if you wanted to set up any further training sessions, I've done a bit of a whirlwind tour of the post-completion side of InfoTrack. Please get in contact with your account managers or anyone internally, and we'll be happy to set up sort of further, a bit more in-depth training session for you. Thank you for joining in again today. Again, my name's Louise, so if you've got any questions, please let us know. Many thanks.